Come on. Great. I love when it's not working.
We had red tires, the ones desired. Believe when I say I want reds every race, for we had tires too hard, couldn't wear to the core. Now we say we want reds every race. Tell me why ain't nothing like some tire wear. Tell me why makes passing so it's not so rare. Tell me why I don't want tires that last all day. 'Cause I want reds every race. 'Cause I want reds every race.
Everybody.
I like that.
The passion he had in that voice.
Who knew?
I figured with them on John Hunter Nemechek's car this week, like you had to bust it out.
Either
That
this
was
week or
perfect,
next.
actually.
So, welcome on into Happy Hour. This is the second driver to ever experience, or third driver to ever experience Puke Combs live in person. And we may be hoping for if John Hunter Nemechek can get the Backstreet Boys on his car, maybe Puke Combs can fork over some money and get it on an Xfinity car. Let's just start to work on that now. Welcome into Happy Hour. Trey Lyle, Dalton Hopkins, Michael Massey with you, and joining us, the driver of the 91 for DGM Motorsports, Josh Bilicki. Josh, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's we're into the start of the season, so it's a busy time for you, but we appreciate you spending some time with us. And how are you doing? And thanks so much.
Yeah, I like that intro, to be honest, and I agreed with the lyrics too. But thank you for having me. I'm doing great. We've we're already on the 5th race of the year, which is crazy. 2 weeks before Daytona, I welcomed with my wife a little boy. So my time at home has been crazy too. So it's just like I can't believe we're already into March. Like it's just it's so fast how this season's gone so far. But I'm great, happy to be here.
So you talk about becoming a father. Like how has that been for you in terms of getting in the race car each week? Has it changed you as a race car driver, or is it something that you just kind of get to enjoy during the week?
Yeah, no, it hasn't changed anything that I do in the race car. Selfishly, I kind of forget when I'm at the racetrack, and that might sound really shitty, but it's my job. And when I'm at the racetrack, I know I have a job to do, and it's get in the race car and do my thing. And my the one thing I will say is, we've had a couple of crummy race weekends. Whether Coda, we deserved a really good run, and I kind of made a small mistake, speeding penalty, and I took a lot of that weight on my shoulders. And the one thing I thought about going home is like, at the end of the day, it's a shitty result for us. 22nd, we should have finished 10th, but I got to go see my little boy. So like that's where it's made a big difference for me. And at home, he's not sleeping the greatest, so that's been a little bit rough. It's selfishly, again, I get to sleep a little bit better when I'm gone on the race weekends. So but in the race car, I haven't thought about it at all. The one thing I thought about maybe cutting back on some sprint car races, just because obviously the sprint car stuff and the dirt racing stuff can be dangerous. But at the end of the day, I still think I'm going to do it.
Has he already gotten a wheel? Like, when does training start?
So I've thought about it very hard. I think I'm going to put him on a stay stick dirt bike first, which is a little battery powered. It's like in between a pedal bike and a real dirt bike, and it runs off a Milwaukee battery. There's different settings. If you don't know what they are, look them up. It's pretty cool. You can start when they're like 2 or 3 with training wheels. So I'll start him on a stay stick, and then I actually bought back the go-kart that I raced I got it when I was 4.5. So I bought it back this last winter. Pretty cool. And either I'm going to put him in that when he's 3, 4, or I'm going to buy him a new car. The thing is pretty dated. It's 25 plus years old. So, he's only six weeks right now. So there's a little bit of time for me to think about what I want to do.
Yeah. And you're a lot busier on top of the baby. You're running the full season this year. You've ran some partial schedules the past couple of years. What's that been like, joining DGM for the full schedule so far?
Well, just so we're clear, I'm running the bulk of the schedule. So there'll be a couple races where I'll miss. For example, there's a race coming up at a short track, which I won't be in the Xfinity car, but I will still be there. I'll be in a cup car. So, my schedule is still full time. My goal is to race something every single weekend. It's what I do for a living. I need to race to make money, obviously, but I love it. I enjoy it. Even when I'm not racing in NASCAR, my goal is to find something to race, even if I'm not getting paid. Like the dirt stuff I'm racing, I'm not getting paid, but I love it. So there'll be a couple off weekends where I can race a sprint car here in Wisconsin. But yeah, I'll run the bulk of the Xfinity Series schedule for DGM Racing in the 91. I'm going to guess between 20 and 25 races out of the 33 race schedule. And it's been a lot of fun. They brought really good race cars to the track, Daytona. We were fast at Daytona, and obviously something unfortunate happened, but we still rebounded to finish 14th. Like with the car that I have no idea how it even still drove straight. Atlanta, we were decent. Atlanta, we didn't have a lease motor, so we struggled a little bit on the restarts. And go figure, there's a race restart with 2 laps to go, and I just didn't really have any help. But we still should have finished 20th, 15th to 20th. Kodo, again, man, we were so fast, and I made a pit road speeding penalty mistake, put us in the back, and then you're with the squirrels. But even at the end of the race, we were running 10th to 12th place lap time. So, I think DGM is bringing really fast cars to the track every single weekend. Phoenix, we weren't great. We actually finished probably a little bit better than we should have, 23rd, which still isn't fantastic. But at the end of the day, it's an honor to drive for the team. And I think people don't realize how small of a team they really are. I think they have 7 or 8 full-time employees, and half of them are the Gosselin family, which is pretty cool. And we have a lot of extra help on the weekends, guys that have full-time jobs and a lady who has they have a full-time job, and they fly in on the weekends just to support us. And obviously they're getting paid on the weekends, but these are people that work a full-time job during the week. And then they choose on Thursday and Fridays, instead of spending their time at home, their free time, they come to the racetrack and support us and get the car through tech. And there are mechanics at the racetrack. So I really enjoy it with DGM. It's definitely the longest time I've driven for one single team. And they've kind of become like family. I love it.
Josh, you said something tragic happened at Daytona. What could have possibly happened?
Yeah, hopefully nothing that happens ever again. But yeah, we were
explain in detail what could have possibly have occurred.
Well,
only right decisions, right?
Yes. I'll start by saying my mindset focusing forward is it's all in the past. Like, hopefully we never have to experience this again. But yeah, ultimately we were pitting, and I was coming down pit road. We're in stage 3. We were running decent, like in the pack before everybody pit. We were like 16th to 20th. The first pack pit, and then that shuffled us to the top 10. And we had a late call to pit. Like, I got the call as we're in turns 3 and 4. Hey, we're pitting this lap. So I'm a road course racer. That's my background. So like I'm pretty good on the brakes. So we had passed like 3 or 4 cars under braking, and like I had a really good pit road entry, and my eyes were looking up, like making sure I'm not going to run into anybody. So I wasn't looking in the mirror. I wasn't looking at anything. My spotter didn't say anything because he didn't know what he should say. And I get to pit road, I cross the yellow line, and all of a sudden just wham, like a missile hit me. And I didn't know what happened. I thought that he had a mechanical failure or something. And it was a hard hit. Like, everybody asked me if it hurt. It didn't actually hurt at all, but I've had hits before lesser than that have broken stuff in the car. And I thought for sure, like, the track bar mounts broke or something in the rear ends broke. And the biggest issue we had from that was it ripped the transponder mount off, which is just like a plastic mount. So we finished the race and we actually came back to 14th. We probably should have finished better. We had a tire go flat, I think like 4 or 5 laps to go, and we had to restart that last caution all the way at the back. But yeah, just unfortunate. The driver of the 5 just made a mistake, and he's had about 3 or 4 different excuses on what happened. I think we know what happened. Again, I hope it's in the past, but that really hurt us there at Daytona. And then unfortunately we had to run into it at Atlanta, which Atlanta I would just deem was a racing incident. I came up the track a little bit, he came down the track a little bit, we touched and he lost control of his cars, and he wiped somebody else out and he crashed me out. But I think it was just a racing incident. And then we go to Coda and the same car spun out right in front of me. I mean, all on his own, and just came back into the track and hit me and spun me out. And, go figure, the one time we need a caution, there's not a caution at a road course in stage 3. So we were far back behind. We were like 25 seconds behind the pack, and we rebounded to a 22nd place finish, I think, which is solid. But at the end of the race, we were running 10th, 11th place lap times. Like, we should have finished up there. So again, it's in the past. We're focusing forward here.
Josh, we have a question from our front stretch garage here. I don't know if you know this guy. It's Ryan Ellis. He says he's a big fan of yours, and he would like to know what's it like having an amazing friend in person as your teammate. So I just
I've never actually. I don't think I've ever met a Ryan Ellis in my life. I don't know.
He looks important.
No, he doesn't. No, Ryan and I go way back. It's ironic because Ryan, I think he's a couple years older than I am. So he was racing in sports cars in IMSA while I was still racing in Miatas. And I looked up to him. I'm like, I want to be racing against him. And then he says heartbroken. We raced against each other several times in IMSA before our NASCAR career started. And then my second ever NASCAR race was in the Xfinity Series at Phoenix in 2016. And ironically, he was my teammate. So it's a full circle moment. We've been teammates a couple times throughout my career, Alpha Prime Racing in 2022. But now, he's full-time over here at DGM. I think it's a good fit, and I'll be running the bulk of the season. So, I mean, for us to be full-time teammates, it's pretty cool. And looking back, like, I'm pretty sure he raced Miatas growing up too. He's a fun teammate to have.
So I saw the video he posted a few weeks ago of his daughter saying, like, Josh wrecked me or something like that. So you making enemies in the whole Ellis household now?
I don't know. I met her at Daytona and I thought that we were friends, but then she said that, so maybe we're not friends. No, just again, we can have fun. It's almost like Megan Goslin, who's the I guess she's PR at our team, but she's the daughter of Mario. Summed it up as we have a relationship like the stepbrothers in the movie. Like, when they get along well, they're making fun of each other, but they get along well, and that's kind of how we are right now.
He did give you a compliment. He says he
loves
you, and you're his favorite driver and amazing father. So thanks so much,
I appreciate Ryan,
for hopping in our comments. We appreciate that.
Maybe Ryan should join the show next.
You're welcome.
Next week, Ryan.
Open invitation, Ryan.
If you need to defend yourself at any point.
I just want to say it real fast. I just want to tell a quick story. At Daytona, Massey and I were in the media center when that incident occurred on pit road, and they had the broadcast on the PA or whatever you want to call it, the intercom, whatever you want to call it. And I remember they played your radio frequency, and when you said we got Chris righted, everybody in the media started laughing. You made everybody laugh. So I just want to say, like, you put some smiles on people's faces that day.
I appreciate it. I should say something. I've raced around Chris, a couple times in my career, and I've seen that he's made some mistakes, and I think off track, I've never had any problems with him. Mm-hmm. Just obviously his on track reputation isn't great. In the moment, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I was pissed because you just destroyed our car. We finished the race, but it still needs a rear clip. But again, I didn't have a problem with him until he tweeted that thing at me. But I mean, unfortunately, there's just some people on the track, at a certain time they're going to do something, and I didn't think it was going to be us that day, but it was.
But hey, we are 1 week without an incident. We can put that.
Congratulations.
Put that sign up. So yeah, hopefully. Did you guys ever like talk face to face about the whole deal, or was the whole deal just like social media?
Talked over Twitter.
Yeah.
He texted me after Daytona. He actually did follow me on Twitter, sent me a message, and called me at an answer after Daytona. I finally texted him back after Daytona, and I said, just you got to use your head. And he admitted he made a mistake through text, and we kind of left it at that. Like, we were all good. Atlanta happened. We didn't talk. Again, I think that we both thought after Atlanta, it was just a racing deal. Like, they were crashing ahead of us. Both of us were probably looking up when the wreck happened at Atlanta. We're coming off 2. We're 3 wide, and it just is what it is. And then after Coda, when he tweeted at me, like, I wasn't going to say anything, but I think my team was a little bit, they were stirring the pot a little bit. They were tagging him in some stuff. I didn't tag him in anything. I just said the driver of the 5. But then when he fired off that smart ass tweet towards me, I'm like, man, like, somebody's got to put you in your place. But what's ironic is, again, I'm looking forward. I know we're talking about it a lot, but I'm looking forward. We did race each other at Phoenix, ironically, all day. I outqualified him. He had a better car than us. We raced each other all day. And if that last caution didn't come out with 2 laps ago or 4 laps ago, he would have finished ahead of me. I just had a better restart than him and passed him. But we raced each other clean all day. So hopefully that's just what it is for the rest of the year.
It feels like that always happens in racing, though. Like, so many times, like, the one thing between Ross and Denny happens, and then like they're like glued. You just become glued to that race car. It just feels like that always happens in racing.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, like, man, watch us qualify by each other and have to take the ride along intro together, and we'll be by each other during driver intros. Lucky that didn't happen, but it's happened before, with other people, with myself and other drivers. It's going to happen again, just part of it.
I think last year after Austin Dillon and Joey Logano, they qualified next to each other and had to do the intro together. I'm pretty sure. But we talk about your season, and you're now doing a majority of the races with DGM, and I believe MBM is where you're going to do cup races, or
Garage 66.
Garage 66. They changed
the
name. So you're going to do it at Martinsville. Using these kind of smaller teams, like what pride do you take in trying to work with growing these smaller teams in terms of just improving them each week?
Yeah, we'll go into the cup race. I won't be at Martinsville. I'll be at another short track coming up, which is there's only 2 of the schedule coming up. But
is it Ryan with Bristol?
Yes. My goal for when I drive for DGM is on the road courses, we should be top 10, top 12, top 10. And at Coda, it was the best car they've ever given me. And it probably was the most competitive field, I think, in the Xfinity Series on a road course in years. Like, the small teams all had drivers that were talented because the back of the pack, they had to qualify in. So there was, like, looking at the D&Q list, there were only 3 cars that D&Q'd, but it was crazy how some of those guys missed the race because those guys are like, it was just such a competitive field. And for DGM to give me a car that was that capable, like, that was really impressive, I thought. But, on the road courses, I feel like we should be top 12, top 10. There's some road courses like Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen, in my opinion, almost drives like a backwards oval. Like, you still need a good car. You still need like a motor. You need aero. And that's where the big teams kind of have an advantage on us. So, for us consistently, I like to be in the top 20. We were a little bit further out. We finished 23rd last weekend at Phoenix, but we had an awful off day. So 23rd still isn't bad, but we'd like to be in the top 20 as much as we can, snag in the top 15s when there's chaos, super speedways, hopefully top 10s. And I think we can fight for the win at certain tracks. Obviously, you look at a guy like Jeremy Clements, he's won a couple races being a small team. And it's not going to happen every week, but let's just focus on the races that we think we can run up front, which are the super speedways, the road courses. And I really enjoy it. It's a different mindset though. Like when I drove for Gibbs last year, the mindset is literally we're racing to win. Whereas there's times when I'm driving for DGM, we're just racing for points. Like, don't do anything stupid. Don't shove it in there when it's the last lap. And instead of finishing 23rd, don't shove it in there and you're going to finish 30th instead. Just take what you can. And it's a different mindset for sure. But I think, out of my 200, I think I have 220 starts now. 218 of them have been in situations like this. So I think I'm quite good at it. And one thing I have to learn is when I do drive for winning teams, it's a different mindset. It's nothing that I've really done that often. But when I drive for Garage 66 and Cup, our goal is strictly lug all the laps. Don't make a fool out of ourselves, which can be easy to do, especially at a small track like Bristol. And really just be there at the end. Hopefully this year's Bristol race is a little bit like last year's Bristol spring race, where there's a lot of chaos and huge tire fall off.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. I did hear after that Bristol night race last year, a lot of people gave you credit for just like giving the space to like lead lap drivers and just being super respectful. So that and the Daytona race this year, where you took that mangled car to a pretty good finish still. Like, I think you've gained a lot of respect in the industry just from those two races alone. So that's got to feel pretty good, right?
It does. After that Bristol race last year, it was a miserable race. And I think the team, we all know what went wrong. And if people don't know what wrong, we had a power steering pump failure and I couldn't turn the steering wheel past a certain angle. So, it wasn't that bad in practice. We weren't that far off in practice and we really weren't that far off in qualifying. But then 5 laps into the race, like I literally couldn't turn the steering wheel past a certain point. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, if this race plays out like the spring Bristol race, there's going to be attrition. There's going to be tire fall off. Like, we can still have a top 30, top 25 result. So I just stuck with it all day and nothing happened. I think there were like 2 cars that fell out of the race. For me, it was miserable in the driver's seat. But, after the race, when I heard Hamlin's comments, it kind of made up for it. Hopefully, knock on wood. Like I said, there's a little bit more fall off this next race. And obviously, we fixed the issues that we had and we can be a little bit more competitive because Garage 66, they're a small team. I think they have 4 or 5 employees. But like at Martinsville last year, we actually were only like a 10th or 2 off, like good cars. And at the Roval, we weren't that far off. And at Chicago, we were literally ahead of teams that we shouldn't be ahead of all day. So like, that's our goal. Like when we race in Cup, like don't make ourselves look foolish, but also we're kind of picking and choosing the races we feel like we can run decent at. We know at the big tracks where aero is a big deal, we're not going to be as competitive, but I feel like we can go to Martinsville, we can go to Chicago, we can go to some of the road courses, some of the short tracks and be decent.
I know you said
fan in the comments here.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Seb.
I know you said that you're going to be doing a majority, the bulk of the DGM races, but you just mentioned, the JGR starts last year. Has there been any talk? Has there been any communication with those guys about this year at all?
Yeah, I mean, JGR reached out to us and, we had stayed in communication over the off season. But to be transparent, at the end of the day, I still need to bring sponsorship dollars to that deal. I feel like I proved myself enough to showcase that I can race for wins. It's just somebody still needs to pay for it. And I use this as an example all the time, but look at Ryan Truex. Like Ryan Truex won like 3 or 4 of his starts and 10 starts for Gibbs, and he still doesn't have a full season ride. So it's unfortunate, but it's the way the industry works. And yeah, there's been conversations with JGR, but it's not looking like anything's going to develop this year. All of my road course starts in Xfinity will be with DGM. And again, I'm happy with that. Like, I feel like for the value, we're a small team and it's so hard to spend an insane amount of money to go to Gibbs and race one race when we can spread that out for 3 or 4 races with DGM. And, at Coda, half the race we were ahead of a Gibbs car. Like, that's cool for us. That's our goal. They hate it. I can tell you they hate it. All the big teams hate when we out-qualify them or out-race them. But, I've had conversations with other teams too, some truck series teams that are capable of winning races. And if the right deal comes along to where I'm not having to spend an insane amount of money, maybe we'll look at that option. There's 2 road courses that are on the truck schedule that really jump out of me, and one being Lime Rock, one being the Roval. I feel like we can win those in the right opportunities. So, fingers crossed, maybe something can come together for those two.
Well, maybe Puke Combs can finally get a record deal and help you out. We'll find out about
we
it.
can all come together.
Hey, if I get a record deal, I'll sponsor you. All
right. All right, I'm gonna shake on it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I got $5.
Thank you. Well, going back to what Puke Combs was singing about, the option tire at Phoenix had, I think, great success. Massey, I know you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, obviously they tried it out for the All-Star race first, North Wilkesboro, and I think, it didn't seem to. I think the drivers kind of liked it, but it didn't make a huge difference. Last year at Richmond, though, I thought it was a pretty good success, and that was like one of the best Cup Richmond races we've seen in a while. And then this past weekend, it seems like everybody is saying like that was the best Phoenix Cup race we've had, maybe ever, but definitely in the next gen era. But what do you guys think about it? I'll start with you, Josh. What did you get a chance to watch the Cup action and see how they're using those option tires? What do you think about that whole deal?
I did. So my new routine since the baby came is come home. I flew overnight home. I fly commercial. I still live in Wisconsin. So I came home, slept a little bit, watched a Cup race with my little guy. And honestly, I think it was one of the better Cup races at Phoenix that I've watched in a while. I haven't driven the next gen car at Phoenix yet, but I've raced in Cup there a lot in the old car. And even in the old car, it was always just meh. Like the old car, I think raced a little bit better up until this new tire came out. But I loved it. Like I thought that it was really, it was interesting to see some of the guys who had qualified a little further back, pick up the option tire early and then race the way forward. And you look at a guy like Priest, who like he was up front for a good chunk of the day. I don't remember where he finished, but I thought it was one of the better races. I am not going to be a huge fan if they still have the tire selection at the fall race, because I feel like sometimes it's just luck. Like maybe you can save your tires, kind of like Ty Dillon did. Like nothing against Ty, but like Ty wasn't a great car all day. Had he not had that pit road speeding penalty, like he would have been able to finish, I think, top 5. And I don't want to see a championship rewarded on just taking a gamble and saving your tires. Now, I would love to see that really soft tire, and maybe even a softer tire come for that race, because it seemed to wear out, and I think it made really good racing. But if everybody's on that soft tire, then you're going to have guys that are going to be conservative. You're going to have guys that push, and then they're going to fall off later in the run. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Like, are you guys a fan of that, having it both tires for that championship race, or are you guys thinking, just have a soft option?
I think that's a very interesting point. It's an extremely interesting point. The fact that the championship maybe shouldn't be decided by something, I don't want to describe it as gimmicky, because to be fair, it's used by a bunch of other different racing series as well. But it's not something that NASCAR is used to, at least. And you're right. I mean, Ty Dillon, Ryan Preece, all were running up near the front, and arguably they probably shouldn't have been in those cases. But at the same time, that is up to the crew chiefs, right? And the crew chiefs are just as much as part of the crew as the driver is. Well, maybe not just as much, but you get what I'm saying. They are the keystone of the strategy part of the race, the strategic part of the race. So
they're the coach. They call the play, the driver executes.
They are exactly. They're the coach.
They're a big part of it. They're a massive part of the race.
Exactly. So, we've seen crew chiefs win championship. We saw a crew chief win a championship last year with Paul Wolf. I mean, they are a keystone. They are just as important as the driver is, I would say. So, I think the soft tire, I don't know, maybe not this year. I would agree, because it's so new and we're still getting used to it. But once we integrate it more into NASCAR, we integrate it more into the short track, and I guess if you call Phoenix a short track, I don't know if you can, but if you integrate it more into these races, it becomes more a part of our sport. It becomes more a part of the stock car identity, and then you can justify, okay, yes, it is a part of our sport. You should be used to it now. It's not a gimmick anymore. This is our type of racing. So maybe not for the championship race this year. However, it should be a part of the short track races. Trey, you look like you really need gotta.
So I was thinking. So I think at bare minimum the softer tire should be like the standard tire for short tracks or mile and less. Like I think you could do this for every race, maybe outside of that Martinsville and Phoenix race because they just mean too much. But outside of fall Martinsville and fall Phoenix, like I would do it at every mile and less track, like New Hampshire, Phoenix, like because you need they've built these cars on the idea of parity to fix the mile and a halves, and you need the disparity, the speed disparity, and that's what made the race interesting. And ultimately, the best car, if they had the one tire, I thought Christopher Bell was probably going to win that race, and he still won the race. So we just had more storylines throughout the race. We had way more cautions, obviously, that might have led into it. But you bring up the championship, and Seb got me thinking here. As he said, he wants a tire strategy similar to Formula One, but I do think arguably the most controversial finish in the history of motorsports happened, and the reason that the person won is because he was lucky and the tire strategy fell his way on the last lap of the race. And what if that happens in the championship? In a championship that fans, I don't want to say call it illegitimate because I feel like that's the wrong word, but already feel like it's a gimmick, and that is something that I think frustrates. But if you go with the Denny Hamlin approach of just using the soft tire and start there and then get it softer and softer and softer, because I think SPG said something about it could be softer, then I think you're on the right track of just having one tire that will work. Massey, what do you think?
I think that, I'm too much of a racing purist to have option tires at short tracks. Yeah, call me old man, whatever. I think, yes, I agree with you that keep getting the tire softer. Do away with the hard tire for the short tracks. And just keep getting softer and softer for the short tracks. Now, for road courses, since it kind of is a standard in F1 and IndyCar and stuff to do different option tires, I'm fine with different tires for the road courses. I think that could be really interesting to explore. But yeah, the short tracks, I don't want, and especially the championship race, what's going to happen if we have option tires. Joey Logano is going to win, and the fans are going to be mad that he won with another gimmick. So, yeah, let's steer away from that. But I would be open to trying it for road courses.
Josh, I like that. I like that mindset.
Thank you.
I like the idea of having that on the road courses. I mean, you see it a lot in Formula One. I think IndyCar has it too. So I would love to see that, honestly. I think our next road course is Mexico. Mexico has some really, really long straightaways, some tighter corners. But Chicago, man, a soft tire Chicago where you're a couple seconds faster, that would be exciting. I think that'd be really cool to see. So I agree on the ovals. Let's just keep making them softer. I also agree, if you're going to do it, don't just do it at one or two races, implement it for every track, all the short tracks at least. But yeah, I would love to see it on the road courses. I think that would make for some pretty interesting, unique strategies.
I think it's an absolute shame that the tire that we had at the Bristol Cup race last year in the spring, Goodyear has not seemed to be able to replicate that, or as I like to call it, the famous PP tire, as Denny Hamlin coined it. So I think from now on, we just need more PP tires for the short tracks. If we had more PP tires, we wouldn't have to deal with the option tire. We wouldn't have to have this debate.
I agree. And honestly, that tire is great for a small team like us. If everyone's riding around at 70% saving their tires, we'll ride around at 85%, match their pace, and it's good for us. And that's why I was so excited for that Bristol night race. I'm they said they brought the same tire back, and my team and I are talking about it in practice. We're all right, let's see how long do you think these tires are going to last? And the other teams are 40 laps at most. And then there were teams going 100 laps in practice, and I'm there's no tire wear. I would love to see that tire come back. Just I don't know if they know how to get it come back. Honestly.
Yeah,
I think the weather played a big part in that.
Yeah.
So they're too afraid to pee in the compound.
Goodyear, if you need to hire someone to pee in your compound, I will gladly do it.
Yes, Josh, we're a very professional organization, as you can tell.
It's all right. Somebody needs to do it.
I think we'll give Nick a shout out here. He wanted to shout out Josh as his favorite driver to
thank
for
you,
the
Nick.
Xfinity series. So we'll do there. Front stretch garage popping as always here. We'll move to our next topic in Southern California. So Dalton, I know you wanted to touch on that as I just realized now I did the same thing like half the. I switched topics. I switched those topics.
It's okay. It's okay because I've got plenty to say about this one too. Yeah. So obviously there's been some talk recently about the Auto Club Speedway and what's going to happen with it. I mean, we've been talking about it for the last few years, especially now at this time of year when Auto Club was part of the schedule. But now there's been, Adam Stern released this thing about whether or not the short track is still going to occur, whether or not it's still going to come back, and we still don't know. So we're just kind of like in Southern California, SoCal purgatory, and we don't have a race there. So the question, I guess, on everyone's mind is we've had this year, we're doing this whole year without any races in the SoCal market, which is the largest market in the United States. Is that a problem for us? Is that a problem for us? Do we need to be in the SoCal market? And if so, what is the future of it? Because now Irwindale Speedway has closed down. Where do we go from here?
Yeah. I think the thing with the Auto Club is that, they were kind of wishy-washy in that report that Adam Stern did on the future of it. I think they still want to do the short track, but I think that NASCAR has frozen new spending, like building new things, until a certain lawsuit gets settled. We don't have to go into that, but I just, that's my theory. That's my reckless speculation on why there hasn't been any movement on that. And I know, like, before the lawsuit, there was that rumbling that motorsports could have been in the Olympics in LA. And if you were going to have Olympics in LA, where would you race? Where would be one of the tracks? The Auto Club. I noticed when it did not get put in the Olympics, the very next day is when construction or demolition of the track happened. But so obviously, I think the short track will eventually happen, but we need something in the meantime. I think, and there's been rumors of it could happen, San Diego street race, I think, is the way to go. Do that for 3 years, and then maybe we'll have a short track in California by then. But what do you guys think?
Josh?
Well, I definitely think there's a need for racing in Southern California. Obviously, you got Long Beach Grand Prix, which, if I'm not mistaken, there's been some rumors there too of us going there and sharing that weekend with IndyCar and IMSA, which I think would be freaking awesome.
Awesome.
I don't know how our cars would make that final corner, though. Honestly,
I
think they
you
would
could make it work, Josh.
I think they would,
since Roger bought it, I think you got to talk to him. So
yeah, I think it would be pretty sweet, honestly. But I don't see that happening. So I think there's still a market. There's still a need for us to go there because there's a market there. I don't know what the answer is. I personally feel like until the Speedway is finished, hopefully it's finished in the next couple of years, I personally feel like we're not going to race there until it's finished. And hopefully once it's finished, it's a good crowd that comes out and supports it. But it just seems like in Southern California, it's I hate to say it, almost like a dying breed. Like, not many race fans there other than maybe IndyCar and sports car. But I think most of those fans, they go to those races. It's kind of like Chicago. Like, they're not diehard motorsports fans. Majority of those people at that race live in that area, and they go just because it's an event. And that's kind of like Chicago. I think like 60 or 70% of the people that went to Chicago had never been to a race. And, they probably thought it was really cool, but they're probably not going to go buy tickets to another race outside of that Chicago area. So I don't know, hopefully, I guess hopefully it's finished sometime soon, because I think the idea of it's pretty cool. I think I'm disappointed they took the track down, like the full 2 mile track, because I think it was a good track. I think it was good racing. It was beautiful. I mean, I always enjoyed going out there. Beautiful backdrop, but hopefully, I don't know, hopefully it's not another 5 years until we get an answer.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that Auto Club was already great, but like now they had the perfect car for Auto Club, and it's just gone. And this was a financial reason that they left it. But yeah, San Diego would be cool. I think San Diego is one of the most beautiful areas. I mean, if you want to go to California earlier in the year, I said last week, like I don't get after seeing all those photos of Sonoma in March, I'm like, that looks like a good option. Just instead of, dirt, it looks like, green grass and beautiful colors. That could always be an option if you want to go earlier in California. But yeah, I think Massey's right on why it's getting held up. But like, are they going to invest money and just do a street race in San Diego? Like that's why don't you just build a track? It's probably just as much money if that. So it's a complicated issue, but there is a lack of presence in Southern California that probably needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Messi.
No, we can go ahead if you want.
Dalton, you got another thought?
Yeah, it is a shame that we're not there. But at the same time, I just want to remind everyone that there is a reason that we're not there. And that's because that we didn't have a great turnout. People just stopped coming. And that included the Coliseum, which, by the way, I liked the Coliseum. Massey and I both got the opportunity to go there in, I think it was 2023. And same thing you guys described about Auto Club Speedway. The backdrop was gorgeous. I loved it. I mean, I loved going there and seeing the Hollywood sign off in the distance. And, you got the Olympic torch at the top of the Coliseum itself and the backdrop. You see the mountains at the back there. Like, I thought it was fantastic. But we just didn't get the turnout. I mean, 24, you can kind of write that off because it was a whole weather issue. But before that, it wasn't a sellout. And there's a reason why we moved to Bowman Gray, which, by the way, was a sellout. So the market over there is the number one market, but it's not the strongest market for us. I think it'd be great if we went to Long Beach. I think it'd be great if we had a street course in San Diego. But that, I don't know when that's going to happen. Obviously, that's all speculation. That's all rumor right now. I just don't see us. I don't know about Auto Club Speedway. I don't know what's going to happen with that anytime soon. But it's not like it's not like it's killing us to not go to SoCal right now.
All right, we'll move on to drivers that may or may not have to hit the panic button at this point, especially in the Cup Series. Josh, you can offer some good perspective from a driver when you don't have the proper start that meets your expectations. How much pressure do you put on yourself to try to like make up for it as soon as possible, or is it something that you kind of have to correct yourself and be like, the only way I get back is if I take it race by race?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at the start of this season. The regular season, which I guess NASCAR's calling it, the regular season didn't really start till Phoenix. Like you got Daytona, which is a crapshoot. You got Atlanta, which is kind of a crapshoot. You got Coda, which is a road course, not a typical NASCAR style race. Although it's become typical now. Obviously, we have more road courses. And then you go to Phoenix, which is kind of the start of your regular season. So, like, I feel like a lot of these drivers are probably not quite hitting the panic button yet because they know, all right, now we're into the normal stretch where we go to Vegas and we go to Miami, and then we go to short tracks. Like our real season starts now. There's some drivers who just had bad luck at both Daytona and Atlanta. And then there's some drivers who had some bad luck at Phoenix too. Like when they went 4-5 wide, some of those drivers were just wrong place, wrong time. But at the same time, yeah, you start the season and you're 30th in points. It is, you're already at a deficit. You got guys who last year had awful seasons. Nemechek, for example, he's had a great start to the year. And I want to say I forget where he is in points, but like his average finish so far has been like 7th or 8th on the list. So, those guys are way ahead of you already. And it's going to be that much more difficult to gain those points up. So I don't know. I think come Miami and Martinsville is really when drivers are going to start hitting the panic button. If a driver like Ty Gibbs, who I'm buddies with, but if he still is not having the season that he wants come Martinsville, then I think their team switches the approach of, all right, how do we just win a race? Like, how do we win a race? That's our only mindset, winning a race, because that fixes all problems. Now we're in the championship, the playoffs. But yeah, it's tough because our season starts in a pretty unique way now with 3 races back to back to back that are kind of, 2 of them being super speedways where you can get wrecked, not even of your own doing. And then COTA, there's drivers who are great at road courses and there's drivers who just say, meh. Yeah. So, it's just a unique start to the season this year.
He is 13th in points and a 12.75 average finish is John Hunter Nemechek. Yeah. And that's the first name we wanted to bring up was Ty Gibbs. And he is, 34th in points. He's had a lot of bad luck this season. Obviously, the end of last season did not go his way. I think Fox had a graphic where he hadn't finished outside of the top 30 in the last six, 7 races. It should Ty Gibbs hit the panic button, Dalton?
Yeah, I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, because think about what Josh just said. The first 3 races, the regular season doesn't really start until Phoenix, and he got caught up in a crash that wasn't his own fault. So, Daytona, he finished 16th, which is not great, but I mean, it's Daytona. It's a crapshoot, right? Atlanta got caught up in a crash, so you can kind of write that off a little bit. And then went to COTA. COTA is a road course. Ty Gibbs is not necessarily a road course ringer. And then Phoenix got caught up in another crash. So I know that it hasn't been a great start for him. I think once we start getting into the 1.5 miles, like this weekend at Las Vegas, I think that's when we're going to start seeing him contend a little bit more. Maybe not for wins, but maybe get back in the top 10, start getting stage points, things like that. Consistency. Because that's where we've seen Ty Gibbs excel in the past. I don't know if it's ready to hit the panic button yet. Now, if we go through Las Vegas and Homestead, if we go through those, maybe even Martinsville, Darlington also, if we go through these next 4 weeks and Ty Gibbs still doesn't have a top 15, or even a top 10, if he doesn't have a top 10 in the next 4 weeks, yeah, then it you should start getting a little bit concerned.
Yeah, and I think Gibbs was kind of off at the second half of last year. None other guys won. And to start this year, Bell, I know he's won 3 in a row, but he could have easily not won any of those races. Atlanta and COTA, he was not the best car, and he got the job done. Phoenix, he was clearly the best car at Phoenix. I'll give him that. But yeah, and then on Ty on top of it, it's a brand new crew chief with him as well, who's new to his team at least, and it probably they're gonna take a little bit to gel, and I think they'll get going. He's also, they always say now, it takes a driver 100 starts in Cup to really get to winning consistently, and Ty's coming up on that number, I believe, and I think that we'll see, maybe not the first half this year, maybe the second half, he'll turn into what we think he can be and start winning some races, and then it'll be the floodgates have opened. So
I agree. I think once a guy like Ty wins, he starts winning consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we saw it in the Xfinity Series. It just happened to be he won on his second race, and then it broke or his first race.
I think he won his first race, which was a road course too.
It was the Daytona road course. Yeah.
Yep.
Man, to be fair, Hendrick and Allmendinger wrecked each other that race, so it did open the window a little bit for him. But he drove a great race that first.
First race.
Yeah, nope. Major panic button. If you're Ed Lane, his biggest fan, you should. Josh, Ed Lane is. I work for a radio station, and he is the host of the radio show. The radio show I produce. So, and he picks Ty Gibbs every weekend. So I needed to give you that context. That's why I said that. That was just for him. But yeah, I agree. I mean, we can talk about Brad Kay. I think he's in the same boat, especially Brad, who I think was in the same exact spot last year. And then Darlington's a month away, 2 months away. and he won that race, and he looked really good. I think he's had bad luck. There are other drivers that I'm way more concerned about, but Josh, when it comes to a guy, comes to like Ty and Brad, we know they have speed. It's just, what is it to try to, like, when you're on a bad luck stretch, to kind of just correct that? Is it just make sure you run all the laps?
I think so. Just like adjusting your mindset going to the race week and saying, all right, kind of like what I explained before when I run for DGM, like our mindset going to this weekend at Vegas, we know we're not going to have a shot at a top 10, a top 5 off of pace alone. Now, obviously, if there's some late race cautions, we get lucky, some attrition, we could have a top 10. But my mindset going into the weekend is, how do we run 20th? No mistakes on my end. No pit road speeding penalties. Hopefully we got good, clean pit stops. It's just execution from everyone should be the main focus. And if everybody executes, if we have a car that's capable, we'll find ourselves around 20th. And that's the same situation for those teams like Gibbs and Kozlowski. Like, they can run up front. Everything needs to be right, though. And just how do you focus on making sure everything is right, no mistakes?
What is it like? You touched about your relationship with Ty. I feel like Ty is just because of his last name gets a certain rap. And what is it like actually like working with Ty Gibbs in terms of, you obviously drove for Joe Gibbs, so you probably have a familiar relationship with him enough. But what is it like working with a guy like Ty Gibbs?
I like Ty a lot, and I think he does get a bad rep. But at the end of the day, I think he's a racer, and I think he's very, very talented. And I think once he wins one race, I think he's going to win a lot of races, and I think he's going to be a threat for the championship too. But I've known Ty just, I think, off of iRacing. I think we started racing iRacing together before he was even racing ARCA, before he was racing Xfinity. So 5-6 years ago, and I think people forget how young he is. He's still a kid. Maybe he says some things on the radio he regrets, but he's a kid. Like, man, if I was in his position when I was that young, I'd be saying much stupider things. And I think at the end of the day, he's just a racer. He just wants to race. I saw he's racing the sprint car this weekend, which is badass. I think he's going to – and I think he knows this too, but I think going to the high limit for your first ever sprint car race is insane. So props to him. He's just a racer. He wants to race. But, I think he gets a little bit of the wrong publicity sometimes. But he, like I said, once he wins one race, he's going to win numerous.
Yeah, my first sprint race. Let's go head to head with Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell.
We did the Chili Bowl too.
He did the Chili Bowl. Him and I were like one main apart from each other. We were in similar equipment. He did a good job. And I think his goal for high limits, if I were him, just log all the laps. Don't be disappointed if you don't make the A main. Just log all the laps. Don't flip. And just enjoy it. 'Cause, man, for me, sprint car racing is the most fun thing I've ever done in my life.
So you're another guy who's done all this stuff, and obviously I think the guy who gets the most acclaim for doing all this stuff is Kyle Larson, because he's Kyle Larson.
Yeah.
But what is it just the mentality of you just wanted to be a race car driver your whole life? You just didn't care as long as it had, I guess, based off what you want to start your son in, 2 or 4 wheels, you were going to race it?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up karting. I started racing karts when I was really young, 4.5. My dad saw that I've always had a need for speed, and he bought me snowmobiles when I was young. I mean, old crappy snowmobiles. I didn't come from money, so I mean, my first snowmobile was a 1985 Yamaha Exciter, which I fell off of, and it ran into my neighbor's tree, knocked the tree down. But we always started with lesser than ideal equipment. My first dirt bike I got when I was 7 or 8. And I liked riding dirt bikes more than I liked racing my go-kart. And I raced motocross for a couple of years. I was decent. I wasn't good enough to make a career at it. And I was better at karting. So when the time came to transition from karts to cars, sold my dirt bikes just because I had friends that were breaking bones a lot. And I didn't want to break bones and sacrifice my racing career, car racing career. But for me, man, I love competing. I love racing. I still dabble with dirt bikes a little bit. I shouldn't, but I still do. It's hard for me not to. But I just like racing anything I can. I think driving a sprint car, racing the dirt midget, racing the Porsche, racing the Endurance Series, like it's all it's all helping. Like everything, anytime you're in a race car, you're just getting better. And whether it's the Cup car, Xfinity car, truck, whatever it is, seat time is key.
I have never seen a snowmobile race, and I need to change that. Where should I go watch a snowmobile race at, Josh?
Well, I've never raced a real snowmobile, but I did grow up snowmobiling, so I snowmobile quite a lot here in Wisconsin when there's snow.
I feel like that's a deep dive in YouTube kind of
you like if you watch motocross, think about the same exact kind of racing where they're jumping and going over rollers and whoops. I mean, they do that in the snow too. So Flow Racing has that. The Pro Series is called, I think it's Amsoil ISOC, or maybe that's the old name. But Flow Racing has the Pro Snowcross Series. And then I actually raced up in Eagle River. It was called an Outlaw 600, and it was a snowmobile 600cc engine, basically mounted to almost like a micro chassis, like a midget chassis, with an offset track in the back and then 2 skis up front. And you race on an ice oval. And it was just like Martinsville. And if you guys don't know what it is, look it up on Google, Outlaw 600. And I won the World Championship Snowmobile Derby in 2019 in Outlaw 600. So it was pretty cool. So I haven't raced a real snowmobile. I ride snowmobiles all the time, real snowmobiles. Never raced a real snowmobile, but I raced an Outlaw 600 a couple of years ago and won, which was pretty cool.
That's the snowmobile derby, that's the snowmobile derby, right? That's what you said?
Yeah, that's the World Championship Snowmobile Derby.
So Josh Bilicki is the Snowmobile Derby champion. We're not the Snowball Derby champion.
I'll send you guys a picture. But Google Outlaw 600. And they're like half car, half snowmobile. They're pretty unique, but it's pretty cool.
So we can refer to you as a world champion.
I guess.
Oh, I got it.
We can. Yeah.
So I think anytime you talk to when you do, you need to tell the CW broadcast that you are a world champion. So this is it, right?
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, that's it. And maybe put my name after it. I bet if you put my name after it, you'll find a picture. But I drove.
I'm terrible at spelling, so I'm going to copy it. So I'm not making that mistake on the air.
All good.
It's Josh.
There you go.
I got that part.
That was my first championship there. And dude, like I said, they're fun. They were a blast to drive. You kind of drive them like you would a dirt car. I had no dirt racing experience at that time, so I just went in blind. And like I said, you're literally racing on ice. The ice gets choppy. Literally, like you're getting airborne going into the corners and you're sliding, and it was fun. It was such a unique experience. I want to do it again. Just it's hard to find the time, honestly. It's actually now it's the same weekend as the Chili Bowl. So the last couple of years I haven't pursued that because I've been at the Chili Bowl instead.
I'm just imagining, like, how at dirt races the whole time, if you're in the crowd, you're getting pelted with dirt. Like, I'm imagining ice shavings, just like
it's not as bad. Trust me, I've been at the Chili Bowl where I'm just getting pelted, like watching it. It's not that bad at the Snowmobile Derby. You're also in layered, like you're in winter jackets. Sometimes like people are in face masks and goggles just to stay warm. So you're protected a little bit more.
It feels like, an opportunity for your sponsor, Rita's, and just, it seems like a kind of a natural fit for them, like you and them to go maybe as a side gig for sponsorship. Well, Josh, we have used all the time that we told you we're going to commit you to, so we don't want to run long. We appreciate it. I know you are busy being a dad. So at Josh Bilicki on Twitter, make sure you go follow him. Driver of the 91 for GGM.
It's X now.
I'm not calling it that.
Yeah. No,
I say it all the time. It's still Twitter to me.
It crashed on free agency, the free agency frenzy in the NFL, so it doesn't deserve that. Anything else you want to plug before we get on out of here?
No, I'm just thankful to be on. Thankful to my race teams, DGM, Garage 66, all our sponsors, Insurance King, Rita's. We'll keep going. Hopefully, we got some good runs coming up. And again, appreciate you guys having me.
That was Josh Bilicki. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks so much to Megan for setting this up. We want to give her a shout out as well.
Yeah, the whole team is awesome. I mean, it's literally a family group, like a whole family affair, just with Mario, Michelle, Megan, Madison. They're all M's too. So I love driving for them. They treat everybody really well. they all have numerous roles, just like I do. I manage my own sponsors. I mean, Mario's team owner, crew chief, setting up the car at the shop, managing the race team, and so is Michelle and Madison. It's pretty cool. So yeah, thank you, Megan.
Thanks so much, Josh. You have a good night, and good luck this weekend at Vegas. That's what we're in.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sounds good.
That was Josh Bilicki joining us. Oh, that was fun. I mean, if you're joining us right now, go back and listen to the interview. Ryan Ellis makes sort of a cameo in the comment section. I do want to go back. Levi, we'll get your comment about Bell. So shout out to you. Thanks so much for coming in right at the top. But we didn't really get to talk about Bell. So let's continue with this topic. I do you agree with me? Kez not hitting the panic button. He was literally in the same spot last year. Right.
Yeah. I think he'll be fine. And like, he's not a great road course racer. He hasn't been great. Like, we're getting to tracks like Bristol, Martinsville, Darlington, where he's gonna, even like Talladega, where he's gonna have a huge shot to crawl out of that hole, and he'll probably win a race. There's other guys around him I'm more worried about.
Yeah, I'm actually more concerned about Austin Cindric.
That's where I was gonna lead to.
Yeah.
I was gonna say there are two guys that I feel like most fit this conversation because they have similar uncertainty around them. And I think at the top of that list, we'll get to Cindric in a second, because I think there's an even bigger name at the top of the list, and it's Daniel Suarez, who is currently 29th in points. And unfortunately for him, unlike Austin Cindric, there is a clear replacement that has a lot of momentum behind him, who currently is racing the Xfinity Series. So if you're Daniel Suarez and you won Atlanta last year and now you're 29th in points, where's your panic level at if you're him?
If you're Daniel Suarez, I think it's pretty high. I don't know if there is really a track that he can bank on in the future. I'm trying to think. I mean, other than the super speedway race, because we haven't really seen him.
Sonoma.
Well, I mean, sure, Sonoma, but can you realistically sit there and say that you expect Daniel Suarez to run at the top, to lead laps at Sonoma this year? I don't know if I can. Not with SVG, but I don't know if I can. I mean, I know it's kind of like on the nose, but like maybe Mexico, like maybe he might be able to show up there. I assume that, he's got experience there. So
it feels like a race for him that will either go boom or bust, because he'll put too much pressure on himself and it might mess him up.
I'll tell you what, if he wins that race, they are going to burn that track to the ground.
He celebrated a lot for a Mexican driver finishing third when it was in Formula One.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Massey.
Obviously, I kind of feel like he might end up in that like Corey LaJoie position last year, where you could kind of see the writing was on the wall that LaJoie was going to get replaced, and then he was just like trying too hard after that and getting into too many incidents. Like, I know like half the races this year haven't been Daniel's fault of what's happened, but like Coda was him spinning out. So I don't know. Like, that was a good chance. And like Phoenix, he had a really good run going. And then what are the odds that Catherine Legg spins right in front of him? So yeah, it's not, I don't see him crawling out of that hole. Also, Trackhouse, I don't think has the speed of Hendrick, Gibbs, Penske right now. So it would really take like a strategy call for him to steal a win here, which, hey, maybe he might, but yeah, I'm hitting that panic button on him.
I am too. I mean, it's more because we were having the same conversation last year with him, and he got, I don't want to say lucky, he put himself in that position, but an inch goes the other way,
he's not in the playoffs.
He's not in the playoffs. And
Mhm.
does Trackhouse go with Zane Smith over him? Like, and I'm not saying they would have, but I'm just making like that would have been more of a conversation.
Yeah,
at
for
least. Sure. So that's something, and I think I feel more of a panic button for him. As for now, we'll get to Austin Cindric, who just lost 50 points, who is sitting at currently 32nd in the points. He's had speed 3 of the 4 weeks during this season. Really, he was good at Daytona and Atlanta. For some reason, they just missed it at Coda, which that surprised me. Then at Phoenix, he was doing. I think he was in the top 10 for what, most of the day, half the day, at least a portion of it.
Yeah.
So for him, it seems like he's just had a lot of bad luck, but he has shown the speed. So I'm curious to see, can he put it together? Because obviously the penalty happened, and we talked about that last week. But like, I'm hitting my, like, if I'm Suarez, my panic is at like an 8. If I'm Cindric, it's a 2, because it's not that I don't see him getting replaced. It's that I don't see a successor.
If I'm Cindric, I'm at about a 5 or a 6.
Yeah.
I agree. I think Daniel Suarez is in a little bit more dire straits than Austin Cindric, than Austin Cindric is. However, that said, Cindric, his best races this season, I feel like, are behind him now, because you had Daytona and Atlanta. He led a bunch of laps there. You know, there's a lot of dominance. I mean, he was a contender to win a second Daytona 500. A real contender to do it, and then that didn't work out. And then a lot of people expected him to run well at Coda, considering he's a road course racer, but that didn't work out either. So now the good news for Cindric is that, yeah, you're right, Trey. He did run pretty decently at Phoenix. I mean, keep in mind that was with the option tire. But that said, I've seen him improve at other tracks as well without the option tire. And I mean, for Pete's sake, he won a Gateway last year. And there was no trickery there. There was no smoke and mirrors there. I mean, he straight up won that race. I mean, yes, Ryan Blaney had an issue at the end of the race, but he was in position to take that win. So I think he is getting better. But that said, I feel like there's not really a whole lot for him to look forward to for the rest of the regular season, with the exception of Talladega and Daytona in August.
Atlanta in July as well.
Oh, yes. Atlanta.
Because that's
I still think he's good at the road courses.
Yeah, I think Penske was bad at Coda. It was across the board. Penske was not good that week. So that's not really on him. But here's the thing. He's 32nd in points right now. If you add those 50 points, do you know where he's at in points? He's tied for 12th. So, like, he's in the playoffs if that penalty doesn't happen. So just one cut of the wheel has really changed the course of his season. Because, like, that, I heard Denny Hamlin and I want to say Dale Jr. or someone talked about it. Like, that was basically like a 2-race suspension that he got, losing 50 points because he averages like 25 points a race. So that was worse than a 1-race suspension. But it does. I agree with you that his best opportunities are now behind him until those super speedways. Because he could have easily won the first 2 races of the season. And Cole Custer happened week 1. Week 2, Kyle Larson wrecked him. And then Phoenix, you look at Phoenix and you're like, well, Penske's won all these fall Phoenix races, so Cindric should have a shot there. And didn't get it done. But I'm going to look at him at coming back to Martinsville, because he got a top 5 there in the fall. And I feel like that's a place where he could, maybe he won't be the best guy, but maybe something happens and he ends up at the front of the field late or something and can make it happen. So he does have more opportunities to get a win. But yeah, I'd say the panic for getting replaced. Yeah, it's at like a 2 for the panic level. For making the playoffs, I'd say I'd put him at like a 7 right now, just because he's got
That's
to
probably
dig
a
out
good way to put it. And you combine those, 7 minus 2 is 5, and that's where we're all at. By the way, I think his teammate, I'm putting air quotes around that because it's not his teammate, but his teammate, Josh Berry, is the one to watch at Martinsville, which we'll talk more as the season goes on. All right, to update everyone on the front stretch draft, there is a new leader in the clubhouse. His name is Trey Lyle. With a 139-point week. Shout out to Christopher Bell for carrying me these last couple of weeks. He's at 499. I just want to point out Zane Smith with a solid 32 points.
If I didn't have Briscoe, I'd be doing so much better.
Massey pulling in second. There is now some separation as Dalton sitting in third currently. Really just needs a road course to bounce back. Needs Brad to bounce back.
Steven, I gotta wait till June. Great.
459. If it makes you feel better, you're still doing better than Brian Nolan, and then Caleb at 472.
It doesn't.
It
doesn't make me feel better.
I'm still can't get over Josh Bilicki raced it basically it looked like a death trap on ice. I can't
like
get over
Mad Max vehicle.
My takeaways from this is, well, Josh Bilicki is a world champion. Ty Gibbs might get a bad rap for who he is, which I kind of felt that way. And 3, there are death traps on ice you can race. And all you need is a drill battery to have a dirt bike. So that's another thing I learned. But great conversation with Josh. If you missed it, if you're tuning in right now, go back and listen to it on the Front Stretch YouTube page, youtube.com/Front Stretch. Subscribe, hit the notifications button, then you'll know when we go live. Speaking of going live, Dalton and I will be back in these saddles once again. The Front Stretch watch party. We will have, I believe, Jared Haas and Mike Neff. So please come into the comments. Please come into the comments and talk about how great Mario Andretti is. Just flood our comments with Mario Andretti. All right. Please do that for Mike Neff. And we will have that on Sunday when the race starts at 3:30 live here on the YouTube channel. If you're listening on the podcast feed, so go to the YouTube channel, as I mentioned, subscribe, youtube.com/Front Stretch. Hit the notification button after you subscribe to get notified when we're live. If you're listening on the podcast feed, our next podcast is Bringing the Heat with Brian Nolan. I believe we'll have Christian Eckes, his conversation that he had back in COTA. I'm trying to remember the races now. Brian had a conversation with Christian Eckes in COTA. He'll join the show. I don't know who's joining him in terms of the guest. He is actually hosting this week, so congratulate Brian Nolan on that. I know he's doing his job this week. So congratulations to Brian, and thanks so much, guys. Any final thoughts before we get on out here? I feel like we just had a pretty good episode.
Yeah, I'd argue that was one of the best episodes. Josh was awesome.
Josh was fantastic.
Really
I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I will plug that you can look for content on their YouTube page and on frontstretch.com from myself and Mr. Brian Nolan. Unfortunately, I'm
Vegas.
stuck with him. We'll be at Vegas this weekend. And then I'm staying out there. I'm going to Thermal Club the next weekend for IndyCar.
Are you staying on the West Coast all week?
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you, My Place Hotels, for making that possible. There's your ad plug, Derek. And also, we're going to get some stuff from the High Limits race that Josh was talking about, too. It's going to have Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell and Ty Gibbs in it Saturday night at the Vegas dirt track there. So we'll have content from that as well.
Dalton, anything else you want to plug?
I'm going to be professionally. You be part of the watch party. I will be at Homestead, Miami next weekend as well. I'll be with the one and only Steven Stump, so we'll get to share that experience together. I'm sure we will have a great time. Probably not as good of a time as Massey and Brian being up in Sin City, but we'll be down in Miami. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for more front stretch goodies as we're gonna have a busy weekend.
Yeah, I do want to plug. Thomas did drop a question in here. Kurt Busch ever driving Cup again? I don't think so. But do shout out Kurt Busch. He just did the Race of Champions with Travis Pastrana, and it appears he did a really good job with that. He had a race former F1 driver Valtteri Bottas at one point. So shout out to Kurt Busch. But that will do for this episode of Happy Hour. For Dalton, for Michael Massey, I'm Trey Lyle. Signing off for now. We'll be back next week for another episode of Bringing the Heat. Not that Happy Hour. Bringing the Heat's on Wednesday or on Thursday on the podcast feed.